Every 17 minutes, an armored vehicle is targeted for robbery in the United States. But in 1994, one heist in Arizona would change everything, not just for the security industry, but for the entire American justice system. What you're about to witness is the story of how 3 ex-law enforcement officers pulled off one of the most sophisticated armored car robberies in history, and the single mistake that brought their perfect plan crashing down. But before I tell you how it ends, let me ask you this: what would you do with $1 million? Hold that thought, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why some choices can never be undone. The planning began 6 months before the heist. Timothy Ring, with his background as a prison guard, knew that armored vehicles were most vulnerable during scheduled stops. For months, the trio tracked the Wells Fargo van's routes, documenting every detail. Arrival times, duration of stops, security protocols. They chose November 28, 1994, strategically. It was the Monday after Thanksgiving weekend, typically one of the busiest days for cash deposits at Arrowhead Mall. The crew knew the van would be carrying significant amounts from weekend sales. The timing, mid-morning, was also calculated. The mall would be busy enough to provide cover, but not so crowded that additional security would be present. Through careful observation, they discovered John Magok's one crucial weakness: his smoking habit. Despite strict company policy forbidding it, Magok would occasionally crack the van's door slightly to smoke during longer stops. The team documented this happening most frequently during the Dillard's pickup, which typically took his partner 8 to 12 minutes to complete. Ring, drawing on his firearms expertise, selected the perfect shooting position, 33 feet away, behind a parked car, with a clear line of sight to the van's driver's side. They even tested different rifles with silencers at a remote location, ultimately choosing one that would make minimal noise while ensuring a clean shot through the narrow door gap. The escape route was planned with military precision. They studied police response patterns and chose the church parking lot in Sun City specifically because it was just far enough to avoid immediate police cordons, but close enough to reach quickly. William Ferguson, the ex-police officer, knew exactly how long they had before the first patrol cars would arrive, approximately 7 minutes from the first 911 call. Inside the armored car sits 54-year-old John Magok, a man known for his spotless record and his reputation for being by the book. His partner has just entered the mall to collect a routine deposit from Dillard's department store. When Magok's partner returned, the van had vanished. No alarms, no witnesses, no signs of forced entry, just gone. In my 25 years investigating armored car robberies, I've never seen anything like this. These vehicles are designed to be impenetrable. The mall's security cameras showed nothing unusual. No struggle, no suspicious activity. It was as if the van had simply disappeared. Days into the investigation, a tip came in: a church parking lot in Sun City. The van was there, engine still running, locked from the inside. The body of John Magok lay on the floor, victim of a precision shot that forensics would later determine came from over 10 meters away. The case seemed destined for the cold files, until a crucial witness stepped forward. He reported seeing something investigators had been desperate for: a white van speeding away from the mall, followed closely by a red pickup truck. Under hypnosis, this witness recalled something crucial: a partial license plate, 23S. But here's the catch. In Arizona at that time, vehicle colors weren't tracked in registration records. Investigators were drowning in hundreds of possible matches. Then came the break they needed. The FBI's $60,000 reward announcement brought forward a woman with a story that would crack the case wide open. Her friend, Jody Espinosa, had noticed something disturbing. Her boyfriend, James Greenham, bore an uncanny resemblance to the police sketch. Even more suspicious, he had suddenly started throwing around serious cash. The investigation now had a name, and that name led to 2 others: Timothy Ring, a former prison guard with advanced firearms training, and William Ferguson, an ex-police officer dismissed for misconduct. The FBI's surveillance revealed a fascinating dynamic. The trio had been living large: jet skis, luxury watches, high-end electronics. Timothy Ring emerged as the puppet master, controlling James through calculated allowances, small payments that kept him dependent and loyal. The FBI's surveillance operation was extensive. After identifying James's apartment as a frequent meeting spot for the 3 suspects, agents secretly installed listening devices throughout the unit. It was a goldmine of intelligence. During their regular meetings, the trio would gather to divide up money and plan their spending. But what really interested investigators were their conversations about the case. The FBI had deliberately released false information about suspects, describing them as young gang members from out of state. Ring, Ferguson, and Greenham couldn't help themselves. They'd laugh about how far off the investigation was. In one recorded conversation, Ring mocked the police sketch artist's rendering, saying they made us look like teenagers. Ferguson was caught on tape discussing the exact position he had taken in the mall parking lot, information that had never been released to the public. Greenham was recorded describing the church parking lot where they had left the van, another detail that only the perpetrators would know. But they were careful with their words. They never directly said we did it or explicitly confessed to the murder. Instead, they spoke in code and half-sentences, using phrases like "that job" or "that day." Ring, with his law enforcement background, seemed particularly aware of avoiding any direct admissions of guilt. These recordings, while not containing outright confessions, provided investigators with a treasure trove of circumstantial evidence. Combined with their suspicious spending patterns and the witness testimonies, the surveillance helped build an ironclad case against the trio. The FBI's psychological warfare was masterful. First, they released intentionally misleading information about suspects with completely different characteristics. The strategy worked perfectly. Surveillance captured the trio mocking these false leads, inadvertently revealing details only the true perpetrators would know. Then came the mind games. They began leaving cryptic messages at James's apartment. A business card labeled "Evidence Number 173" mysteriously appearing at his door one morning. James panicked, immediately calling Timothy and expressing his fears that law enforcement was closing in. The FBI intercepted these frantic communications and knew it was time to move. The arrests were executed with military precision. Timothy Ring was cleverly lured to an FBI office under the pretense of helping with an unrelated case, ensuring he would be unarmed. James and William were apprehended simultaneously at different locations, preventing any possibility of warning each other. When investigators searched their homes, they found damning evidence, the fake license plate matching the witness's 23S recollection, and even more incredibly, a detailed plan for dividing the stolen money with their initials and exact amounts clearly written out. Under the crushing weight of evidence, James Greenham finally broke. His confession revealed a plan months in the making. The crew had spent countless hours studying the van's route, watching Magoc's habits. They discovered his one fatal violation of protocol, occasionally cracking the door to smoke during stops. This tiny gap would prove to be the perfect opportunity for a precision shot with a silenced rifle. They created detailed maps of every possible escape route, timed traffic light patterns along their planned route, purchased a van matching the Wells Fargo vehicle's specifications to practice entry and exit techniques, and acquired police-grade radio equipment to monitor law enforcement response. They set up a secure storage unit under a false name to store their equipment, established alibis for the day of the heist, obtained the exact type of fragmentation ammunition that would be untraceable, and modified Ring's pickup truck with a hidden compartment for the money. They practiced the entire operation multiple times at an abandoned parking lot, and scheduled fake job interviews near the mall to explain their presence if questioned. The execution of the heist was precise and terrifyingly efficient. Timothy Ring, positioned with his rifle from about 33 feet away, waited for that crucial moment when Magoc cracked the door to smoke, a clear violation of company security protocols. One silent shot was all it took. With Magoc fatally wounded, James Greenham immediately approached the van while William Ferguson watched their surroundings. Because the door was already slightly open, they didn't need to breach the van's formidable security. James simply pulled the door wider, moved Magoc's body, and took control of the vehicle while Timothy followed in the red pickup truck. The entire operation took less than 45 seconds. They drove to the pre-selected church parking lot, where they methodically transferred exactly $833,798.12 to Ring's vehicle. But these weren't amateurs leaving loose ends. They meticulously burned their clothes to destroy any evidence. The fake license plate was disposed of deep in the Arizona desert. The bullets Ring used were specifically designed to fragment on impact, making ballistic matching impossible. Every detail had been considered, every contingency planned for. When James led investigators to the desert disposal site, they recovered not just the fake plate matching 23S, but also other crucial evidence that would seal the case. All but $100,000 of the stolen money was recovered. The convictions came swiftly. Timothy Ring received what would initially be a death sentence, later commuted to life. James Greenham got 27 years and William Ferguson received 16 years. But this case wasn't finished making history. Ring v. Arizona would go on to change American jurisprudence forever, establishing that only juries, not judges, can impose death sentences. Remember that $1 million I mentioned at the start? The price of this perfect crime was far higher. A man's life, 3 ruined careers, and a permanent mark on American legal history. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more true crime stories that changed history.